My name is Tiffany Grant, and I run Money Talk with Tiff, which is a financial literacy and education platform. So, my passion is helping people learn more about money because it's not something that we're taught in schooling. I joke with people and I'm like, I went through elementary, middle, high, undergrad, graduate school, and nobody told me about personal finance, which is bizarre when you think about it. But that's why I created my platform to kind of bridge that gap. So a little bit more about me to dive in a little deeper. I was a single mom of two boys. I went to school full time, undergrad, then my master's degree. There were times where I worked two jobs, just to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, what I've learned is that I have two little human beings depending on me. And also, part of that story, I was a teen mom. So I've had my oldest son since I was 18. I had him when I was 18. And so from that moment on, I said, you know what, it's go time. And I decided that I didn't want to be a statistic. I said, you know what, I want to prove everybody wrong because a lot of people were like, oh, you're never going to be able to do anything. You have kids now, this, that, and the other. And I said, you know what, watch me because I can show you better than I could tell you. Um, so that's why, I decided to be on this lifelong journey to show them and show other women, other single moms, other teen moms what's possible. Now, I'm no longer a single mom. I did get married last year. Um, thank you. But it was so eye-opening, and just sharing my journey with other people is pretty much how I started. It just started as a blog. So I'm super excited to be here, and I would love to share any insights.
Oh my goodness, what a story, right? So this is how Money Talk with T kind of started. And I would love to learn more about, what led you to wanting to share your story or what you were learning in your journey, because I'm sure there were so many lessons for you publicly. But one of the things that I think is just always important to highlight is that it's easy for you, or I don't know if it's easy, but it appears, right? Like it appears easy for you to be able to have that conversation and be able to say now, like, this is what happened and this is how I went from one place to another. And it's also easy for people on the other side to hear someone else's story and be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like you've overcome all these challenges. However, people in their own lives, right? They don't want to go through any road bumps. Like they don't want to have any hiccups, no challenges, no obstacles. Like when we face them ourselves, we're like, why is this happening to us? Right. But then we hear your story, like, you were a single mom of two having to navigate, right, financial literacy and building wealth without any of the knowledge or a foundation or framework, right? Because we go to school and do math every single year, but never learn about, personal finance and how to make
Because
that happen.
parallelograms are so important. Parallelograms are so important in our everyday life. Um, but yes, to your point, like, so just a little bit about my background family wise, right? So I came from a family of spenders. So everyone in my family is a spender, and everybody in my immediate family has experienced bankruptcy, even foreclosure, all types of stuff. And so I grew up seeing that that was not what I wanted. Right. So I took that. So I tell people you can go one of two routes depending on how you were brought up. You can either follow the same route, or you can make a drastic change and do something completely different. So I decided to make a drastic change and do something completely different. And my family is looking at me like, are you even related to us at this point? But but growing up in that environment, and going through the 0809, because I'm 30 now, so going through the 0809, seeing that companies were not loyal, you can be laid off whenever, that all of those things played a huge part in who I am today. And from the time I was like 16, when I got my first job, my mom said, okay, cool. Now go ahead and pay your car payment, because I had a car back then. So from that moment, I had to figure out, okay, how can I make my money stretch? And so that started my whole trajectory on how, I started learning more about money, how I became addicted to saving money, which I tell people, like, there are two different, spectrums to things. There's like the extreme savers, and then there's the extreme spenders. I'm really high on that spectrum of saving, but there, you always have to have a balance. And that's what I'm starting to learn now is that, I've been on this like debt free by 30 journey, and I've just been making all types of sacrifices and, all of those things. But what I failed to realize is that I needed balance.
Mm.
And so that's what my husband currently has been showing me is that, okay, Tiffany, it's cool that you save money and it's cool that you like to pay off debt, but you have a whole life to live. So try to find that balance, within yourself, depending on whether you're a spender or a saver. Try to meet yourself in the middle. But anyway, from the time I was 16, I was one of those extreme couponers because I tell people necessity breeds innovation. And
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, I have to make this $7 an hour job, pay this 300 something dollar a month
Listen.
car payment. And mind you, I was in school. So I was only working part-time hours. So I'm like, okay, how can I make this work so that way I can get the things that I want, but also take care of my responsibilities? And so I became an extreme couponer. I was one of those people that you see on TV and they're like buying a whole bunch of stuff and then they leave for like $20. That was me at 16. Except I only bought what I needed. But anyway, so starting on that trajectory, then I started investing at 19. Just because I was learning, I would read all the money magazines, Kiplinger, Personal Finance, reading blogs, listening to all types of things, whatever I could do to engross myself in financial education, I did it. And so I started investing at 19. And mind you, at that time, it was hard to start an investing. Like it was hard. Like I had to save up $3,000 in order to open my brokerage account. Like it's not like it is today where you can start with little to nothing. Back then, it was like still, a lot of barriers to entry. So I went ahead and saved that up, started investing. Now, here's a lesson that I learned. When I was 21, I ended up selling everything in my investments. And because I needed the money. So, I mean, I don't regret it, but in a way, I'm like, dang, if I would have just held on to it, I would be in a much different situation right now. But so that's one thing I will tell people is once you invest, do it for the long term. Don't try to make a quick buck and all those things because investing is a long game. And a lot of people get in trouble when they think that it's a short game. So that was one lesson that I learned, throughout the years. But all of that to say, I have had quite the journey. There is a lot of speed bumps involved. There were a lot of like brick walls involved as well. But at the end of the day, I feel like life happens for you, not to you. And so everything that comes into your path is there for a reason. And it's not what happens to you, is how you react to it. So even in the midst of everything, I still kept a cool head most of the time. And I still kept my wits about myself to make sure that I made the best decision for the little people that depended on me. So that's been my main motivation through all of this.
Oh my goodness. No, you've been dropping some serious gems already. And, everyone who's listening, I really hope that you are taking note and not listening to this passively, right? Even if you're in the car or whatever the case may be, like let it sink in, but come back, listen to the episode again, take notes because she's giving you the playbook. Okay.
Okay.
And it's really important because it's all of these nuanced things that make it so that you can actually follow through and build wealth in a way that helps you to make it sustainable for one, right? Like in the long term, because you said it's a long game, and to find that balance, like you mentioned. And so I too, was in the kind of like hustle and grind culture, right? Hustle culture and being extreme on the end of, working toward hitting a goal. And I'm not saying that I'm against that per se, but you have to know when to pivot and when to shift and how to integrate some level of balance, because you also don't want to be burnt out by 30, right? Like you it's like, okay, I want to be debt free by 30, but like you going what have these bags under your eyes too, like what's going to come along with that if you do it in a certain way. And so how can we have some level of flexibility to be able to find a way to still be ambitious and do amazing things, but in a way that's self-preserving and honoring like our wellness and these other aspects of who we are, knowing that like we're going to hit our goals no matter what. If you're operating in abundance, you know there's always more money, there's always more opportunities, there's always going to be, you know, a way for you to hit your goals. And so sometimes I almost think a lot of times in the personal finance space that there's like scarcity within it, that's driving kind of like this, you have to scrimp and save and cut away, and yes, you do want to save and be focused and mindful on what you're doing, but it's how can we more so operate in abundance and know like how can we call into our lives more, how can we start attracting more, on the other side of it. So I love that you share that.
Absolutely. And just to build on to that point, right? So, about scarcity and abundance, right? So, a lot of what I do is getting into the psychological side of money, right? So, when I'm working with my clients, to give you an example, when we talk about budgeting, okay, a lot of times when people hear budget, they're like, oh my God, like they do one of those
You're
numbers, like, are
running.
you like, right? Are you kidding me? Like, we got to do this. But when I start getting into the psychology and saying, okay, when you think about budgeting, you think about restriction, you think about constraint, you think about what you can't do. But I challenge my clients to think about budgeting in the sense that this is giving you permission to do the things that you want to do and still achieve your goals. And
Mhm.
so we use budgeting more for, you know, setting expectations, setting, goals and things like that. So that way you're telling your money, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to let you run me no more. I'm going to run you and I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do. And this is how I'm going to give myself permission to do the things that I love to do. Because, like, give you another example. When I have clients and we're first starting to work together, they're like, oh my gosh, I got to tell Tiffany I'm about to buy this. Oh my gosh, I got to do that, that type of thing. And I'm like, look, I personally don't care what you spend your money on, as long as it makes sense in your budget, as long as it balances out. So if
Mhm.
you decide, okay, I need these new pairs of shoes, that's fine. Just make sure you know where that new pair of shoe money is coming from. Like, it's completely fine. But where people go wrong is that they try to do mental accounting. So they try to say, okay, I know I have this bill, I know I have that, I know I have this, and they're trying to keep up with it in their head. But there is power in writing things down. When you set intentions for your money, when you set intentions, things happen so differently. And usually you can give yourself a raise just by writing it down and tracking it. Because a lot of times, and I give this analogy too, we're rowing our boat, we're rowing our boat in this thing called life, and the boat is flooding, right? And we're like, why is this boat flooding? Like, why am I sinking? And not knowing that you have all these little teeny pinholes in the boat, and all of those little teeny pinholes can be plugged up just by tracking your spending. If money is flowing out and you have no idea where it's going, then it's no way possible that you can reach any financial goal that you have. So that's always why, budgeting, cash flow state, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. But as long as you track it, that is a foundation for every single financial goal that you have or you want to accomplish. I don't care if it's investing, saving, spending, it all starts there. So if you don't hear anything else from me, and if you like, this lady's crazy, I can't relate to her, she just, whatever, please take that away, that you need you need to know how your money's flowing in order to reach your goals.
Oh my goodness, you're really speaking to some of the same stuff that I see, and what I think is really significant to note with that, kind of to drive home the point, is that if you're in a relationship, do you want someone that is in a relationship with you only to check on you once a year, or only when things are going wrong, or to be fearful of talking to you about stuff? So your relationship with your money, right? Your ability to maintain healthy money boundaries
Mhm.
and, communication. Because when you're budgeting, you're communicating with your money. You're saying, this is what I need you to do for me and whatnot, right? And so I really start thinking about it that way. Is like, if I'm in a relationship, nah, you need to be checking on me regular, like, okay, at least a few times a week, if not like daily or whatever the case is. And each person can kind of decide what that looks like to them. But I love that you mentioned, right? Like, this is your vehicle to the goals and the dreams that you want to have. And it's shifting those mindsets that are keeping you from being able to try. Just even, it's like, let's just do an experiment. Like, if you do it, if you create a budget and you absolutely hate it, when you create a budget in the right way, and you absolutely hate it, guess what? You can go back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not exempt from going back to doing whatever you were doing before. But I think people are so paralyzed that they don't even try anything new. They don't even try giving it a shot in the first place. So I love that you mentioned that.
Right. And I just want to like build on to a couple of points you said there. So the first one was, you said treat this like a relationship, right? And so what I tell my clients is have money dates. If you have a
Yes.
spouse, have money dates. If you're by yourself, have money dates. Like just take some time to just be one-on-one with your money and make it, whether it's once a week, you pick a day of the week and that's your money day. Or if it's once a month, you pick a day of the month and that's your money day. But make sure you have your money dates because it's so important to just check in. And there's power with awareness, right? Just to give you a quick example, I had one lady, she had never budgeted before. So we finally got everything down, all of her past expenses, things like that. And come to find out, she was spending $800 a month on just going out with friends and alcohol. And she had $10,000 in a credit card that's what was keeping her up at night. Okay. So that's why she came to me. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this credit card. Help me get out of this. And so when we sat there and we looked at, how her money is flowing, I said, okay, so now we have awareness. I'm like, $800 a month going out with friends, alcohol, whatever the case may be. If you were to take that same 800 or not even just the whole thing, let's say 500, you still have 300 left, 500 to put towards that credit card. This is how long it would take you to do it. And she was like, oh, I never thought, first of all, I never knew that's how much I was spending. So immediately she had a savings there because she was like, oh, well, I see that I need to cut back on this. But then also just breaking big goals, because like 10,000, that sounds like a lot of money. That sounds huge. But if you take that and you start breaking it down into little bite-sized pieces, you'll realize that, it'll take you no time at all. That was a strategy that I used when I was going through my journey. $50,000 in debt was a lot, and I was just like, especially as a single mom, two boys, like I'm just like, and at that time I was working like $10 an hour jobs, 11, 12, whatever. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a lot of money. But then when I just broke it down and did it piece by piece, so maybe it was like a $1,500 student loan, $1,000 student loan, that type of thing. By the time I looked up, 50,000 was gone. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. But then when I looked at the numbers, I said, you know what? It happened. But you don't realize it. Like if you make whatever it is, whatever goal you have financially, if you make that a part of your everyday life, then you'll be knocking it out chunk by chunk and you won't even realize how much headway you're making unless you check in, which is what you're supposed to do. But you won't even realize how much headway you're making and how easy it really is. But it just takes the awareness and it takes having goals, and making sure that you set those, and then making sure that you're doing at least one or two things a day to get towards whatever those big goals are. And that's how you tackle anything in life, really.
Oh my goodness, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I feel like we're gonna have to have you come back at some point. You're dropping these
I
gems.
love it. I love
Oh my
it.
goodness. No, seriously. And again, if you're listening, you may need to go back and listen again and take some notes and actually follow through. Like it's one thing to listen to podcasts and read books and, read the blogs and all of that stuff. the goal is for you to be mobilized. The goal is for you to do something, even if it's experimental, even if it's just to give it a shot, even if it's just to try it. And if you want to go back to doing whatever you was doing before, then feel free. But don't listen to my podcast, at least while I got Money Talk with T on the podcast, and not try something that's been mentioned today, and I think that's the huge thing for me, is because people talk about, oh, consistency and discipline and whatnot. And it's like, okay, well, that comes from, like you mentioned, right? Putting in the work on a small level, but regularly. And so if people feel like things are so big, it's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And so really that may just be like, how do you have you looked at your account today? Maybe all you do today is look at your account. Like, let's just make it that small. And people, I can look at my account. Well, then do it then. Don't sit here looking at me. Like, give it a shot. Look at your account. How does it make you feel? Dig deeper. Tap in with Money Talk with T. Go to her website and learn how to get connected with people that can support you in this journey. And so I would love to know, just like where people can stay connected with you and how you help people, so that if someone's listening, they're like, she seems like she might be really helpful, and they've got this little voice inside them, which I urge them to follow through on listening to, where can they stay connected to you?
Sure. Really quick, I just want to tap onto that real quick, just to follow up. One thing that I tell people is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so at the end of the day, like Jacint was saying, if you feel like your financial situation is out of control, then try something different. That's the only way to get a different result. So anyway, you can find me, moneytalkwitht.com. You can find me on social media everywhere, Money Talk with T. And I would love to have you just tap in, even if you don't do anything else in this episode, just tap into the wealth of knowledge on the website, because I have 200 plus blog articles reaching everything. And I help people with personal finance, entrepreneurship. So if we have any budding entrepreneurs or people that are entrepreneurs, I have a lot of content about business, small business, things like that as well. I am all about getting people educated. That is what my dream and my goal is. And so if nothing else, just tap in, search on the website, search for anything, whatever your heart desires. And I'm almost certain you'll find something. And if you don't, then send me a message and let me know what you need so I can create it. So
I love it. No, seriously, I really appreciate you. Your energy is just infectious. And I think that we could talk forever about this. And I assume this is also what your clients experience with you, is like how they're having a different way of having a money conversation. Because if you grew up and the only reasons or the only times you talked about money was always just like conflict and chaos and dysfunction, that when you think about money, that's what's going to come along with it in your association. But to have a conversation with someone who you can be having a conversation and smiling, and you can be breaking things down, and the energy can be good around it, that in and of itself is transformative. So I appreciate you for all that you do. Thanks for sharing your wealth of knowledge, because you could be out here building this wealth and not telling nobody about it. But you know what? You are kind and generous enough to help us all out. I need to go to the website and see what I can find.
But also, where's the fun in that, right? Like, my thing is, if you have the knowledge, share it. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. You might spark somebody else to do exactly what I'm doing, and that's okay. We need more of us talking about money, because that's the problem. We don't have enough of these conversations. So let's be the change we want to see in the world. And if we want more people to be apt with money, let's start having these money talks.
Oh, thank you so much. And y'all, again, if you didn't listen to the website, you need to go back and listen to the episode again and take notes, and then go to the website, Money Talk with T, to tap in, get all of your personal finance and entrepreneurial education on, so that you can build wealth and hopefully do it without burning out. So we will talk to you next time, Gems.